Alright, we'll be on this journey together here. Here's my Bessie. Love the truck. It's a total mess, but complaint is when I'm running heat, actually with the temperature set to hot, mainly in the winter, I get a really nasty choking smell of coolant. Like, can't see any fogging coolant coming out, but it makes it really unbearable to drive this thing when it's cold. So basically my wife won't even drive in it. I'll do it, but I'll crack the windows. It's just awful. So I've done a lot of things. I pretty much I really have that diagnosed as a heater core just based on symptom. The thing is, it will take a month, 2 months maybe, to get the coolant level from here to here. I mean, it's going to be the tiniest little pinhole of a leak in there. And I've pressure tested it over and over. You know, I'm losing just a slight amount of coolant. And based on the smell, I'm very confident it's heater core. So to do this job, I got to pull the dash. And I'm going to have to pull the HVAC box, which means I need to recover the refrigerant. I'm going to need to drain the coolant. I'm going to need to pull half the interior apart. I've got my new parts. I've been really putting this job off for a while, but I've got an evaporator that's new, and I got a GM OEM heater core here, and I'm on COVID quarantine, so this is the time to do this job. I have tons of other projects I need to finish. I haven't put away tools in forever, but it's time to get her done. So, see how this goes. Alright, so it's been about an hour. I'm going full speed on this job because I don't really want to milk it out. Recovered the AC. I got the coolant just with the funnel stabbed in it. I haven't started draining the coolant. I kind of wanted to get a little further in. So, these are the heater hoses. And then here's the AC lines. Those are going into the dash. So I'll obviously have to disconnect those. At that point, refrigerant's recovered, so I'm good there. An amount of coolant will be leaking all over the ground. I'm gonna catch it. I disconnect the negative terminal of the battery, and I pretty much went wild in here. So let me just give you some pointers. I mean, this is what I do for a living, so it's maybe a little different for me. But the main few things is I would just get out of the way what you know needs to go. So like for me, you know, I put the radio in this, so I know exactly what it takes to get the radio out, get this little, center stack cover and stuff disconnected, the heater controls and all that. Get this upper cover out of here for the console, pop the glove box out, pop the instrument panel out, which is a little tricky. It's a little bit of a unique connector. There's going to be a lot of these connectors where you have to unlatch something and fold something. Just take your time. I really just don't have time to do it, step by step. And then, obviously, being that the dash is going to come out, you're going to need these A-pillar covers pulled. Let's pull the two of those. So, I'm just kind of stashing the stuff down here. Got the little kick panel and stuff like that, console, A-pillar, that little knee bolster, that needs to be out of the way. Console cover, radio and stuff. I'm kind of keeping the screws near the parts. Then this metal piece got a bunch of 10mm bolts. That's got to come out. Quite a few things to disconnect on that baby. Glove box. Glove box is the glove box. Every glove box has got a little bit of unique challenges. This one was screwed on by all the 7mm bolts. And then it's got, a little release mechanism. Pretty standard, really. And then, at this point, I went ahead and I pulled these little top trim pieces. Here's what those look like. Just like that. 3 of them across the top. And then there's 10mm nuts on studs for that right there. So get those out of there. Now, at this point, I got to kind of figure out which direction it's going to go. I'm working on getting the steering column out, and I'm probably going to pull this console. To pull the console, I'm going to probably pull the seats. Pull the seats, you know, I'm going to lose my spot to sit. So I'm kind of doing what I can while I got seats in it. And then I'll be kneeling most of the rest of the job. It's not really a big deal. Still looking to do this one day, so try and knock it out. But you know, I'm really just, there's no way I'm gonna do step by step, but there is a lot of stuff on this job. It looks to me like that's gonna be some of the dash bolts. I'm gonna try to undo the whole panel as an assembly. So we'll check back in. Oh, you know what? Let me pop over. That was a plastic spoon. Let me pop back over and talk about this column. I don't see any good way to really work on this job without taking the column out. So, about the steering column. This is the main connector. That's the airbag connector, and then there's the it's not really the steering angle, but it's a bunch of things like clock spring, basically, small connector right there, center screen. And then I'm gonna disconnect the coupling right there. That's about a 15 millimeter, I'd say. And then I'm gonna come up here and get the actual column bolts. You know, we got those bolts, that 13 right there. So about 4 of those bolts and the one coupling, and this whole column should come out. I'll be able to get it clean out of here. So that's how it's going. Alright, here's how this job's going. Pain in my butt, but I knew it was going to be. A couple things I learned. One, definitely keep the plastic instrument panel attached to the metal frame. First I was kind of like looking to separate the plastic, huge waste of time. This is, on this side, the main electrical connector. So that's definitely going to get disconnected. Antenna, some other little harnesses. All these have to be disconnected. This, I believe, is the XM antenna. And these are something with the OnStar antennas. It's been a long time since I've really played with OnStar too much. So all that stuff has to be disconnected. In the center console, not much. What really put a beating on me, though, is this aftermarket stereo wiring, which I did. It's just like, you know, it's a big mess. And it had to get kind of like tapped into a power source. So rather than just being able to disconnect it, I'd have to cut the wire and then butt connector it or resolder it or something, which wouldn't really be that big of a thing. But I just don't, you know, I just don't really want to deal with it. So I was able to get enough room and skate the whole instrument panel rear as far as I could. That's plenty of room to access this heater box. Had it been factory wiring, it would have been quite a bit easier, but you know, there you go. A lot of parts. I mean, you can see, like, it's just better to keep all the plastic and frame together than you're not dealing with this harness. Otherwise, you're going to disconnect every single piece. And this is typical. I mean, in the factory, they're swinging this instrument panel in, you know, 2-person team or so, or maybe with the help of a machine, and they're setting it in and boom, running in some bolts and making, you know, 8 connections. It's just the better way to do it. One thing that was tricky, like I'm saying, there's that wiring. The way that you'll have to deal with this could be a little tricky. I think I probably could have left this whole brake pedal bracket hung, but it was a little unclear to me as to what was really holding it in. So I went ahead and removed it completely. I may actually button that back up, because that basically, these bolts from the bottom were for the column, but then there were some more bolts under the column that were going to the bottom of the IP right here. So that was kind of a big thing. A few airbag connectors, definitely the brake switch connectors had to go. Here's the main connector for this side. It's up here on top. That airbag and that big multiple connector had to come off. And then in this console, we'll get the console clean out of the way, and then there's a couple bolts right here, and then go into right there, 10 millimeter head, and then, you know, really not all that bad of a job, a big job, but no dashboard is going to be an easy job anyway. So I'd say this one's actually probably a little easier than normal, minus me making extra work for myself with all this aftermarket wiring. Also, some of those harnesses are for the light bar and under the rock lights, and I have all kinds of aftermarket wiring and crap in here that's beating me up. And then these are going up to the antenna and to the backup camera and all kinds of stuff. So there's a quick update. You can see why I'm doing this now with COVID quarantine. But you know, the next big thing, getting into this HVAC box, the thing to do is really going to be to just pull the whole assembly. So you can see it's held in by a whole bunch of 10 millimeter nuts and studs. Quite a few harnesses. This harness looks like it may be able to stay with it, but to disconnect this, I have to I gotta pull those heater hoses and the AC lines. That's why I did the recovery. So it's time now. Time to drain the coolant, get the hoses off there, get it unbolted at that TXV. We'll check back up. Alright, well there's the beast. There's the main doors. Recirculate. Little crappy screen. Doesn't have a proper cabin air filter. It's kind of junk. Good access to the blower motor. There's a TXV, so I'm gonna unbolt that in a minute here. Here's the inlets to the heater core. So that baby's got to come apart. Wasn't really all that hard to get out. Just those bunch of 10s. You can see stripped to the firewall now. Just nothing real technical on that part. It's a little tough because this duct work goes to the rear of the console for, you know, rear seat, rear passenger compartment HVAC. So I had to kind of like swing it out at an angle, but kind of standard, not a big thing. I don't know, I'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's either 6 or 7 studs. One was a little tricky to get to right here in the corner. That one was hard to see. The other ones were really straightforward. So let me bust that box open, get this party started here. Alright, so splitting apart the box, only been a minute or two. So this is just how slight this issue is. If you look, I mean, I guess it looks horrendous in this video, but there's just the tiniest little seep, little pinhole of a leak right there. You can tell that coolant's been kind of crusted and drying up on that little gasket. So the good news is this will fix it for sure. I'm going to change the evaporator core while I'm sitting here. There's a little temperature sensor there, a thermal probe, like a thermistor. You know, if I see anything else that really needs to be done, I have the truck down this far. I'll get some more parts, but essentially if you're going in here, you'd be pretty dumb not to change that evaporator core. And if the problem is the heater core, obviously you're changing that. So I'm gonna pop the parts open and you know, get it going. But so far it's really just been a whole bunch of Phillips screws. Not real difficult, so I just got to manipulate this a little bit more to get the parts out, and then I'll check up on reassembly. Alright, I got both parts prepped. So the evaporator core, I needed to change over this dum-dum insulation kind of goop. Be good to get a whole roll of this stuff, but it's all good. I was able to cut it off the old one. And then the heater core came with this foam, so I just did the foam adhesion, wrapped it around the whole thing. So it's time to get this baby reassembled. I just got the box reassembled. I mean, as you can see, that heater core is actually pretty bad once I got it out all the way. Couple little notes. This thing, you really gotta Put it together nice and squarely. Take your time. Make sure everything's sitting right. You might have to squeeze a little, pull a little, make sure that this seam ends up really consistent. If it's not going together, just take a breath and pull it back apart. This blower housing sits kind of like in a flange right here. So the blower housing's got to be sitting in the right spot. I found it helpful to start some screws, get something started, lined up, start some screws, and then slowly kind of close it up. And then this little piece on top was really simple, but it definitely took some time. Just patience. It's really not all that technical, but basically a couple screws pull this cover off to access the heater core. One screw pulls off this little ductwork, and then a bunch of screws will split the box. Same going back together. Now I'm gonna run this thing back over and start swinging it in the truck. All right, box back in. Haven't made any of the connections, not worried about that. What I did is connected up the TXV, so now my AC system is complete, and I made the connection on my coolant lines, and I'm gonna do a vacuum, 10-minute vacuum with a 10-minute leak test. Purpose of all this, to make sure I don't have any leaks. I'm gonna fill up my coolant, and I'm gonna put a pressure tester on it, and I'm gonna do all this stuff before I get too far along. I do not want to find that I have a leak when I'm done with the job. I anticipate no leaks. A couple little notes on getting this baby back in. It's pretty tough. You got to kind of guide. Right here, there's the drain hose for the condensation that drips out beneath the car when the AC's on. Really got to guide that sucker into its hole. It had a tendency to catch an edge and was pinched off. So if I were to do that, obviously, every time I ran the AC, this box would fill up because it wouldn't be draining, or it would end up leaking past the kink and it would just drain in the truck. So other than that, I mean, it's just reverse of removal, just guiding, making sure that stuff comes through. And then, you know what I may do right now? This thing's always had weak sunroof drains. I may play around with these two drains while I'm sitting here behind the dash so I never get at them. I know some people have been opening them up, kind of drilling them over. One thing I had to pop out was this transfer case control module. I didn't really mean to take it apart like this. It was getting caught on this edge and kind of popped apart in a weird way. So I'm going to make my couple connections right here, play around with these drains while it's doing the leak test. Alright, so I love this truck, but being that I got the dash out and I'm playing with these sunroof drains, it's the first time I've been able actually to really get to this one. That sucker is so full of crap, and this is a janky design. I'm gonna try to poke it through that little Phillips head looking cross kind of opening. If I can't get it all the way through, I'm cutting all that stuff out of there. But talk about freaking janky. But I do love my Hummer. Alright, so as long as I'm able to get the tube in there really far, it opens up. So I'm good with it. I'm just going to clean it out. And I just got the tube. I made sure the tube is set nice and well. Oh, you hear that timer? Leak test. So I'm going to come back to that drain. Alright, leak test passed. Time to button this baby up. I still got to do the coolant pressure test, but pretty sure that's going to be a very quick tell. So going all right. So just slamming on this thing. Got the dash back in, console just about to go in, steering column's in. Want to get kind of like work my way from the forward back a little bit, opposite of how I put it in. But in a minute I'm going to get the seats swung in, but while I got the seats out, I want to vacuum everything all up, get it cleaned up. One thing is just continue making sure things are buttoned up in a order. So like I went from the right front to the left, and making sure that everything is bolted in, connected, etc. And now I'm just about to move on to the radio, and more like the trim pieces and stuff. So just going in order, that way I don't leave something disconnected deep behind the dash and have to redo anything. That would not be fun. All right, cleaned. Time to get it back together. All right, so I got it up and rolling, but I didn't have good AC performance. I had about 150 high side, but I had 0 low, kind of leading me to believe there's a restriction. And the most logical was the TXV. So didn't exactly go as hoped, but you know that I put that evaporator core in. It's brand new, but who knows if there's any little bit of debris that clogged that expansion valve up, that would cause it. So I just I recovered it, pulled it all apart, blew it out. Blowing it out's not really the best way because it may introduce moisture, but I'm gonna do a nice long vacuum and come back and do another recharge. Hopefully I get good performance. Heating system and stuff seems good. It's not that it has a leak. I'm hopeful on this aftermarket evaporator. The OEM one wasn't available. The OEM heater core was available, so that's what I got for that. So we'll see. Hopefully it's good, but if not, I'll show you the gauges, and then I'm gonna get a TXV if cleaning this one out didn't fix it. All right, like I said, 150, 160, 0. So I'm still having trouble with the pressures. I really think it's that TXV. So sounds like I'm running to get a thermal expansion valve. I'm not sure it's available, but I really don't see what else it would be that makes the most sense. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab one. I'm gonna recover this and leave it in a vacuum though for a while, just to get any moisture that was potentially in the system. So to be determined. With that, I think I'm blowing about 70. That's no good. Yeah, it's almost 80. No bueno. All right, just got back with this TXV. So it's been 3 hours in a deep vacuum. And the good thing with that, A, it's holding vacuum. But the good thing of it being in the vacuum the whole time is any moisture that's in this system should be boiled out essentially, because when it gets pulled into a vacuum, it's going to lower the boiling point of everything. And in this case specifically, we're worried about the water. So this is good, a good procedure. 3 hours probably a little excessive, but you know, one of the best practices would be to go to the accumulator. On a CCOT, it's an accumulator. In this case, it's a thermal expansion valve, so it's actually a receiver dryer. And to replace the desiccant. And the desiccant is what would absorb the moisture. So in this case, you know, I'm not going to do that, mainly because, you know, I was really working back here, so I wasn't trying to open up the condenser area. But being that it's been under a long vacuum, I think that's really good. And on this TXV is going to bolt in. And basically, this is the inlet down here. And then this is the outlet. So the outlet temperature is going to have an effect on this bulb. It's kind of like almost like a wax pellet. It's a mechanical thermostat. And if the outlet temperature is too high, it's going to basically close off this valve down here to essentially restrict the inlet. So pretty much if the inlet gets restricted, that's going to lower the low temperature and low pressure even lower. And then if it gets too cold, what it's going to do is it's going to react and it's going to open this, which is going to raise the temperature a little bit and raise the pressure a little bit. So just the fact that this is reading 0 psi, you know, I'm still really solid on this TXV is not working. It's almost like it's got this inlet closed off all the time, and that's why it's literally sucking down to 0 psi when it should be about 20 something, 25, maybe 30 even, but not 0. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop that TXV back out, but here's a good look at the new one, It's got some new gaskets and seals with it. So, and then I'll show you the old one when I get it out in a minute. All right, so knock that out really quick. It's just basically the 13 millimeter holding the two lines on, and then the lines pull off, and then two, I think they're 5 millimeter Allens. It's really simple. These are the old seals. It also came with these other seals that go onto the evaporator lines, but I just changed those, so keep those. Throw those out. Here's one thing I noticed on this GM one. It's got a plastic little sleeve in there. That's kind of like questionable to me. You know, like I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention with it. The AC's always been great in this truck, but this is a part I had to unbolt to do the evaporator, so I'm just really suspect of it. But just looking there, I'm not really sure why this has a plastic sleeve. It almost seems like the sleeve could have moved. I mean, I'm spinning it, but you know, I don't have a real conclusive diagnosis. I'm sure there's a way to bench test this, probably by varying the temperature in the upper port to see if it moves the lower port, but you know, to be honest, it's not really what we do. We diagnose this because of our pressures. You know, how we were at 0. It's into a negative now because I'm vacuuming again. But exactly why this was fine and then I unbolted it and bolted it back on and then no longer fine, don't really know. In hindsight, probably would have been a good idea just change it anyway, just the fact that I'm unbolting it. But new one's in, do the vacuum and the charge. Pretty sure we're going to be fixed, so take a look in a minute at our pressures. Alright, just fired it up after the charge. Pretty confident. You know, we're 30 on the low now, 175 on the high. So the high was decent, but you know, our low is just being drawn down too far. So, moment of truth. Been running for about 2-3 minutes right now. Oh yeah. We're at 40, 42. You know, so I don't know. It is what it is, but overall successful job. Still same day. Tied up a few hours getting that TXV, but that's the ticket there. All back together. I mean, I didn't detail the floor mats and stuff, but it's a complete truck again. Got freaking cranking AC. You know what? It's warm enough now where I can verify the heater, which I did earlier, and no smell for the first time in 5 years. So I've been obviously putting this job off a while. Turn the AC off, get it off a recirc. I just hear the door moving now. I'm just feeling the heat kick on right now. You see it climbing. You know, so this is gonna tell me a lot about making sure the heater core flows good and making sure that temperature door is moving good. You know, I should be able to get over 100. I mean, this is the coolant temperature in the actual engine and system, so that's at least 100 degrees. And I'm over 100 already, you know, so I'm gonna call this a success. Oh, an all-day job, but a success. I mean, I'm over 110 heat, so let's switch that baby back over, turn the AC on, get it on recirculate. Let's let it cool it down. Just heat cycle it, you know, one way, the other way. And then I'm gonna shut this baby down and call it good. See, it's bringing it down, bringing it down, bringing it down. If I wanted to speed it up, I could probably even rev the engine a little. I mean, we're ready at about 50. It's obviously working good. So, long day, but a success. Eventually, success. Yeah. So these are good. 25, almost 200. Perfect. All right, there you go.